I nearly bailed on this month's compulsory family dinner. Running a secret multi-billion-dollar tech empire doesn't exactly leave room for leisurely evenings, but Mom insisted, and her invitations are essentially commands. Elena, sweetheart, Mom fussed as I stepped into their grand estate. You look cozy. I glanced at my carefully understated outfit. Plain black sweater, basic jeans. Nothing flashy. Of course, the watch on my wrist was worth more than their entire mansion, but that detail didn't need to surface. Not yet. Tech startups, Dad remarked knowingly to his business buddies around the table. No dress code. If only they realized I'd finalized a $500 million acquisition from my phone during the ride over. Richard's firm just went public, Mom announced proudly, gesturing to my brother. Valued at $2 billion. Richard, polished in his tailored suit, sighed. Could have been higher, but the market's brutal lately. I stifled a grin behind my water glass. That little slump? Courtesy of my company swallowing 3 of his competitors just last month. And Ella is still working on what was it again, dear? Mom turned to me. Just a tech company, Mom. Right. The little startup, she nodded, addressing her guests. She's been plugging away for years. Very determined. My phone buzzed. Probably Singapore checking in on the latest merger numbers. I silenced it. The real entertainment was about to begin. Actually, Dad said, setting down his fork, I've been meaning to talk to you about your company, Elena. I think it's time I stepped in to help. Here we go. Thanks, Dad. We're doing fine now. Now, he repeated in that tone that had always fueled my need to outdo him. I've got 3 decades in business. Let me invest. Show you how it's really done. Richard smirked. Could probably use some legitimate expertise, sis. My phone vibrated again, and again, then 3 more times in quick succession. Elena, Mom sighed. At least check your messages. Could be important. It's fine, I insisted, though my hand reached anyway. Just work. 1 glance and my stomach sank. Breaking. Shadow Systems unmasked as the world's largest private tech empire. Hidden founder identified, Elena Chin, billionaire. You all right, honey? Mom asked, catching my expression. Trouble with your little business? The dining room doors flew open. Marcus, my CFO, barreled in clutching a tablet. My apologies for the interruption, ma'am. He froze at the formal dinner scene. What is it, Marcus? I asked evenly, though I already knew. The story's out. Everything. With the market reaction, your net worth just blasted past 11.2 billion. Mom's silverware slipped to the floor. Billion? Dad coughed on his wine. That's impossible. No mistake, sir, Marcus replied crisply. Ms. Chin is founder and CEO of Shadow Systems. We've been operating in secrecy 5 years, but the leak hit the press today. Richard's face had drained to paper white. Shadow Systems, the company that's been buying up half the industry? The same, I confirmed, rising to my feet. The company that acquired your top 3 competitors last month. Apologies for the dip you've been seeing. 11 billion, Mom whispered. Correction, Marcus said after checking his screen. It's already 11.8. Markets are reacting very favorably to your reveal, ma'am. Dad stared at me like he'd just met me. But you said it was just a small startup. No, I corrected him calmly. You said that. I simply never bothered to disagree. And now my phone was exploding. The phones never stopped. Journalists from every major outlet, business partners, and rival companies all vying for attention. Those trips you mentioned, my mother whispered, still stunned. You told us you were meeting investors. I nodded. I was buying out businesses larger than Richard's, sometimes 2 or 3 at the same time. Marcus's tablet chimed. Ma'am, CNBC is requesting a live interview. Also, the Prime Minister of Singapore is on hold for you. The Prime Minister? Around the table, my father's business acquaintances had abandoned their poker faces and now stared openly. We're designing their new national technology framework, I said, gathering my things. Just one of our smaller contracts. Smaller? Richard's voice cracked. The Saudi agreement dwarfs it, Marcus supplied politely. And then, of course, there's the EU initiative. I checked the time on the $2 million Patek Philippe I'd kept tucked beneath my sleeve. Marcus, bring the car around. We'll head to the office. Your office? My mother asked weakly. The local one? Our global HQ is in Singapore, I explained. But we also have locations in London, Dubai, and Sao Paulo. My father struggled to his feet. Elena, about my offer to help? Appreciate it, I said with a calm smile. But I have a board session to prepare for. Fortune 500 clients dislike being kept waiting. My phone vibrated again. The executive crisis management team. This particular crisis, though, was almost enjoyable. We'll have to reschedule dinner, Mom, I added. Running a worldwide empire tends to block off the evenings. Global empire, she echoed faintly. The little startup we worried over. At the doorway I paused. That startup now surpasses the top 5 tech giants combined. But thank you for the concern. I left them at the table, silverware scattered, their certainty in ruins. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't shouting that everyone was wrong. It's calmly letting them see it on their own, preferably over a very expensive bottle of wine. The following morning's headlines said it all. The Invisible Billionaire. How Elena Chin quietly built a tech empire. Shadow Systems emerges as the world's most powerful company you've never heard of. From family disappointment to tech titan. From my penthouse office, I watched our stock value soar. Marcus was coordinating PR, sorting through thousands of media requests. Your father has called 8 times, my assistant noted. Your mother, 12. Richard tried both your lines, plus 3 emails. Any fresh family news? I asked, reviewing new acquisition reports. Your mother's country club finally approved you for their board. They turned you down 3 times before. How convenient, I murmured, signing another billion-dollar merger. The elevator's private chimes sounded. The executive floor. My father rushed in, looking frayed despite the costly suit. Elena, he began, but the words fell away as he saw the view. The whole city stretched beneath us, his own tower dwarfed in comparison. Hello, Dad, I said evenly. I see you discovered our regional headquarters. Regional? This is the tallest building in the city. One of the smaller ones, I replied. You really should see Singapore. Marcus re-entered with his tablet. Ma'am, Asian markets just closed. Our value is up another 23%. The acquisition finalized. We now control 67% of the global semiconductor industry. My father collapsed into a chair. Semiconductors, but Richard's company. We'll need to negotiate their chip supply with us, I finished. Business is still business. The private elevator doors hushed open again. This time, my mother stepped out, every detail of her appearance carefully arranged, as though she'd spent hours preparing. Darling, she began, but her voice faltered when she took in the command center around her. My vast desk, the global operations glowing on massive screens, the quiet force of assistants managing the empire's heartbeat. Mrs. Chin, Marcus said with a practiced nod. Would you like an update on your daughter's net worth? This morning's numbers are remarkable. Mom collapsed into the chair beside Dad, stunned. Just then, my phone buzzed, the Prime Minister again. This time, I put him on speaker. Yes, let's move forward with the infrastructure rollout. No, 12 billion is our final number. Yes, I understand. It represents a nation's worth of technology. That's exactly why the offer is 12 billion. I ended the call to find both my parents staring at me in disbelief. You just negotiated with the Prime Minister, Mom whispered. One of 6 on today's list, I replied, scrolling through my calendar. Busy morning. Marcus's tablet chimed. Ma'am, Richard's company is requesting an urgent meeting about their chip supply. Tell them to go through proper procedures, I said firmly. Family dinners don't double as boardrooms anymore. Dad's voice finally broke through. Why didn't you ever tell us? Tell you what, I turned fully to them. That while you were singing Richard's praises for his successful company, I was building something 100 times larger. That the daughter you dismissed with her cute little startup now controls much of the world's tech infrastructure. We would have supported you, Mom said quickly. Oh, like when you rejected my funding requests. Or when you told me to stop chasing dreams and just get a job like Richard. The wall of screens behind me lit with fresh streams of market data. Another subsidiary of mine was spiking in value. And what about that investment offer? Dad asked cautiously. Surely the terms would need updating now. I almost smiled, pity in the curve of my lips. Dad, I spent more on office furniture last month than your entire company is worth. Marcus cleared his throat. Ma'am, the G7 leaders are waiting in the conference room. The G7? Mom's voice cracked. The actual? Yes, Mother, I said evenly. Turns out running the largest tech empire in the world comes with a few high-level meetings. I smoothed down the sharp lines of my blazer, the very picture of sophistication. I trust you can find the door. Some of us have countries to negotiate with. Elena, Dad reached one last time. We're still family, aren't we? I turned back slowly. Family would have believed in me 5 years ago. Family would have seen what I was building, instead of dismissing it as some trivial side project. Another buzz. Richard, likely panicking about his dwindling chip supply. Marcus, I instructed lightly. Remind Richard that business hours are 9 to 5, and his CEO sister doesn't take personal calls to discuss professional problems. Mom gestured helplessly at the office, the empire, the sheer dominance surrounding us. When did you become all this? I've been this person all along, I said quietly. You just never chose to notice. Too busy applauding Richard to realize who was truly succeeding. Marcus appeared once more. Ma'am, it's time. Time for what? Dad asked warily. For our next acquisition. I smiled. A company called Global Tech Solutions. Richard's biggest competitor. We're buying them out for roughly the same value as his entire company. Mom's face fell. When the market grasps what's happening, Richard's stock will probably drop another 30%, I finished smoothly. It's just business, right? Isn't that what you always taught us? At the conference room doors, I paused. Oh, and Mom? The country club board seat you were bragging about. I gave her a cool smile. I bought the entire club this morning. Don't worry, you can keep your membership. Family discount. And with that, I left them, surrounded by the undeniable proof of what they refused to see me building. Sometimes the sweetest form of payback isn't only proving doubters wrong. It's rising so far beyond their imagination that their disbelief becomes irrelevant. A week later, Forbes hit the shelves with a feature. The headline read, The Shadow Queen, How Elena Chin Quietly Built a $1 trillion Empire. I had the cover framed, but not for the glossy photo of me standing in front of our Singapore headquarters. What made me smile was the little inset image, our modest local office tower looming over my father's corporate HQ like a shadow swallowing the sun. The business world was still reeling. On one of the office's many screens, a CNBC anchor declared, Shadow Systems hasn't simply been buying companies. It's been silently taking hold of the core tech infrastructure that modern society depends on. My phone buzzed again. Richard, of course. That made 27 calls since yesterday. The day his stock price was obliterated by a 40% crash. Your mother's on line 3, my assistant said, murmuring something about the country club board elections. Tell her the tradition is that the new owner selects the board, I replied, signing another acquisition deal. Though she's welcome to submit an application through proper channels. Marcus stepped in with the morning report. We just passed $1.2 trillion in market cap. The EU antitrust regulators are tense. Remind them who manages their digital backbone, I said. Already done. Also, your father's company is requesting a meeting. A possible merger. That made me laugh out loud. Inform them we don't consider firms worth less than our coffee budget. The elevator chimed. Richard stormed in, looking rumpled, stripped of his meticulous polish. You have to put an end to this, he barked. My company is collapsing. Fascinating, I answered, eyes still fixed on my screens. Did you book this appointment through official channels? I'm your brother, he snapped. And I'm CEO of the corporation running your entire supply chain, I countered. Which title do you think carries weight right now? Marcus cleared his throat. Sir, Miss Chin's calendar is full. You may want to file a request for a future meeting. A request? Richard sputtered. Elena, this is insane. We're family. Family. At last, I looked up at him. You mean the kind of family who told investors not to waste money on my little hobby project 5 years back? His face blenched. You knew about that? I own those venture capital firms now, I said with a smile. I know everything. The phone buzzed again. This time it was the president, one of the few who'd scheduled properly. I rose from my chair. Excuse me, I have a call with the White House about national security infrastructure. But if you'd like a meeting, Marcus can slot you in. I believe March of next year has availability. Richard stood frozen, mouth gaping, as I walked toward the secure conference room. Just before the door slid shut behind me, I overheard him whisper to Marcus, bewildered. Did she seriously buy the whole country club, just to block Mom from the board? No, sir, Marcus replied smoothly. She bought all of the country clubs. Your mother's application is still pending review. The following hours vanished in a haze of high-level calls with heads of state, calculated market moves, and the steady swell of my empire. Shadow Systems had grown far beyond being just a business. It had become the unseen scaffolding propping up the modern era. As the sun sank low, my assistant stepped in to announce a final guest. Bring them in, I said, already certain of who it would be. My father walked through the door, his steps heavy, his face older than it had seemed at that unforgettable dinner years ago. Elena, he began, but his voice faltered as his eyes swept across the wall of monitors displaying our global reach. His entire professional life had been limited to a modest local company. My own work was redrawing continents. Another lecture about business? I asked lightly. No, he answered softly. I came to apologize. That caught me completely off guard. I was wrong. So wrong. We all were. We only saw what we wanted to see. Our little girl pretending at business. We never realized that I was building something that would make your company look like a convenience shop, I cut in. That the daughter we dismissed would one day control the technological destiny of entire nations, he finished. Yes, I said. Exactly. Marcus entered with the evening update. Ma'am, he reported, we've just secured the last independent chip producer. We now hold 98% of the global semiconductor market. Including my company's supply line, my father murmured. Including everything, I corrected. That was always the vision. Own the infrastructure, and you own the planet. And none of us saw it, he admitted. No, I agreed. You were far too busy urging me to imitate Richard. How's his company these days, he pressed. You already know, I replied. You're the one dismantling it, he said flatly. Business is business, I echoed back to him, his own favorite saying. That's what you always drilled into us. My phone vibrated. A call from our Singapore HQ with opening numbers from the Asian markets. Another trillion tacked on. Your mother misses you, he ventured. Family dinners stopped being mandatory a long time ago, I replied. Success rewrites the rules. And at the country club, people are starting to realize power belongs not to those whose names linger longest on the membership list, but to the one who owns the list itself. He nodded slowly, clarity dawning. You're not simply successful anymore. You're powerful, truly powerful. I rose, signaling the conversation was at an end. The truth is, I always was. You just couldn't see it past your own expectations. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Now, I said dryly, now that I've built an empire, now that I wield a power you never even dreamed of. I gave a small laugh. Funny, isn't it? After he left, I remained by the window, gazing out over the city lights. Somewhere below, the family that had once underestimated me was slowly realizing their world had always been smaller than they believed, and that the daughter they dismissed now held that world firmly in her grasp.